The Ascent of Mount Carmel by St. John of the Cross. Book 2, Chapter 4 treats in general of how the soul likewise must be in darkness, insofar as this rests with itself, to the end that it may be effectively guided by faith to the highest contemplation. It is now, I think, becoming clear how faith is dark night to the soul, and how the soul likewise must be dark, or in darkness as to its own light, so that it may allow itself to be guided by faith to this high goal of union. But in order that the soul may be able to do this, it will now be well to continue describing, in somewhat greater detail, this darkness which it must have in order that it may enter into this abyss of faith. And thus in this chapter I shall speak of it in a general way, and hereafter, with the divine favor, I shall continue to describe more minutely the way in which the soul is to conduct itself, so that it may neither stray therein nor impede this guide. I say then that the soul, in order to be effectively guided to this state by faith, must not only be in darkness with respect to that part that concerns the creatures and temporal things, which is the sensual and the lower part, whereof we have already treated, but likewise it must be blinded and darkened according to the part which has respect to God and to spiritual things, which is the rational and higher part, whereof we are now treating. For in order that one may attain supernatural transformation, it is clear that he must be plunged into darkness and carried far away from all contained in his nature that is sensual and rational. For the word supernatural means that which soars above the natural self. The natural self, therefore, remains beneath it. For although this transformation and union is something that cannot be comprehended by human ability and sense, the soul must completely and voluntarily void itself of all that can enter into it, whether from above or below. I mean, according to the affection and will, so far as this rests with itself. For who shall prevent God from doing that which he will in the soul that is resigned, annihilated, and detached? But the soul must be voided of all such things as can enter its capacity, so that however many supernatural experiences it may have, it will ever remain, as it were, detached from them, and in darkness. It must be like to a blind man, leaning upon dark faith, taking it for guide and light, and leaning upon none of the things that he understands, experiences, feels, and imagines. For all these are darkness, which will cause him to stray. And faith is above all that he understands, and experiences, and feels, and imagines. And if he be not blinded as to this, and remain not in total darkness, he attains not to that which is greater, namely, that which is taught by faith. A blind man, if he be not quite blind, refuses to be led by a guide, and since he can see a little, he thinks it better to go in whatever happens to be the direction which he can distinguish, because he sees none better. And thus he can lead astray a guide who sees more than he. For after all, it is for him to say where he shall go, rather than for the guide. In the same way, a soul may lean upon any knowledge of its own, or any feeling or experience of God, yet, however great this may be, it is very little, and far different from what God is. And in going along this road, a soul is easily led astray, or brought to a standstill, because it will not remain in faith like one that is blind, and faith is its true guide. It is this that was meant by St. Paul when he said, Accedentuem ad Deum oportet credere quod est, which signifies, he that would journey towards union with God must needs believe in his being. As though he had said, he that would attain to being joined in a union with God must not walk by understanding, neither lean upon experience or feeling or imagination, but he must believe in God's being, which is not perceptible to the understanding, neither to the desire, nor to the imagination, nor to any other sense. Neither can it be known in this life at all. Yea, in this life the highest thing that can be felt and experienced concerning God is infinitely remote from God and from the pure possession of him. Isaiah and St. Paul say, Nec oculus videt, nec aurus audivit, nec in cor hominis ascendit, qua preparavit Deus iis, qui diligunt illum, which signifies, that which God hath prepared for them that love him, neither eye hath seen, nor ear heard, neither hath it entered into the heart or thought of man. So, however much the soul aspires to be perfectly united through grace in this life with that to which it will be united through glory in the next, which, as St. Paul here says, eye hath not seen, nor ear heard, neither hath it entered into the heart of man in the flesh, it is clear that in order perfectly to attain to union in this life through grace and through love, a soul must be in darkness with respect to all that can enter through the eye, and to all that can be received through the ear, and can be imagined with the fancy, and understood with the heart, which here signifies the soul. And thus a soul is greatly impeded from reaching this high estate of union with God when it clings to any understanding, or feeling, or imagination, or appearance, or will, or manner of its own, or to any other act, or to anything of its own, and cannot detach and strip itself of all these. For as we say, the goal which it seeks lies beyond all this, yea, beyond even the highest thing that can be known or experienced. And thus a soul must pass beyond everything to unknowing. Wherefore, upon this road, to enter upon the road is to leave the road. Or, to express it better, it is to pass on to the goal and to leave one's own way, and to enter upon that which has no way, which is God. For the soul that attains to this state has no longer any ways or methods, still less is it attached to ways and methods, or is capable of being attached to them. I mean, ways of understanding, or of perception, or of feeling. Nevertheless, it has within itself all ways, after the way of one that possesses nothing, yet possesses all things. For if it have courage to pass beyond its natural limitations, both interiorly and exteriorly, it enters within the limits of the supernatural, which has no way, yet in substance has all ways. Hence, for the soul to arrive at these limits is for it to leave these limits, in each case going forth out of itself a great way, from this lowly state to that which is high above all others. Wherefore, passing beyond all that can be known and understood, both spiritually and naturally, the soul will desire with all desire to come to that which in this life cannot be known, neither can enter into its heart, and leaving behind all that it experiences and feels, both temporally and spiritually, and all that it is able to experience and feel in this life, it will desire, with all desire, to come to that which surpasses all feeling and experience. And in order to be free and void to that end, it must in no wise lay hold upon that which it receives, either spiritually or sensually, within itself, as we shall explain presently when we treat this in detail, considering it all to be of much less account. For the more emphasis the soul lays upon what it understands, experiences, and imagines, and the more it esteems this, whether it be spiritual or no, the more it loses of the supreme good, and the more it is hindered from attaining thereto. And the less it thinks of what it may have, however much this be, in comparison with the highest good, the more it dwells upon that good and esteems it, and consequently the more nearly it approaches it. And in this wise the soul approaches a great way towards union, in darkness, by means of faith, which is likewise dark. And in this wise faith wondrously illumines it. It is certain that if the soul should desire to see, it would be in darkness much more quickly with respect to God, than would one who opens his eyes to look upon the great brightness of the sun. Wherefore, by blinding itself in its faculties upon this road, the soul will see the light, even as the Saviour says in the Gospel, in this wise, In judicium veni in hunc mundum, ut qui non vident, videant, et qui vident, ceci fiant. That is, I am come into this world for judgment, that they which see not may see, and that they which see may become blind. This, as it will be supposed, is to be understood of this spiritual road, where the soul that is in darkness, and is blinded as regards all its natural and proper lights, will see supernaturally. And the soul that would depend upon any light of its own will become the blinder, and will halt upon the road to union. And that we may proceed with less confusion, I think it will be necessary to describe, in the following chapter, the nature of this that we call union of the soul with God. For when this is understood, that which we shall say hereafter will become much clearer. And so I think the treatment of this union comes well at this point, as in its proper place. For although the thread of that which we are expounding is interrupted thereby, this is not done without a reason, since it serves to illustrate in this place the very thing that is being described. The chapter which follows, then, will be a parenthetical one, placed, as it were, between the two terms of an enthymeme, since we shall afterwards have to treat in detail of the three faculties of the soul with respect to the three logical virtues in relation to this second night. End of Chapter 4, Book 2.